Charles Darwin spent the last 39 years of his life studying an animal most gardeners today actively try to kill. He concluded it may be the most important creature in the history of agriculture. That conclusion explains something most gardeners have noticed but never understood. Why a garden left untouched for 3 years outperforms one that has been fertilized, tilled, and tended every season. Not sometimes, almost always. The difference is not the soil, it is what is living inside it, and 4 things derived from a single grain crop are among the oldest known ways to bring it back. That creature is an earthworm. And what has happened to earthworm populations in the last 50 years is one of the most consequential and least reported stories in modern agriculture. Ancient Egypt made killing one punishable by death. Decades of controlled field research put a precise number on what they actually contribute to a harvest. It should be headline news. It is not. The practices destroying them are still being sold as good gardening. The knowledge that rebuilds them costs almost nothing. Almost no one is passing it on anymore. To understand what was lost, go back to a decree issued in Egypt in the 1st century B.C. Cleopatra VII, ruling from Alexandria, placed earthworms under the protection of the state, confirmed in agricultural history literature, removing earthworms from Egyptian soil, by farmers, by foreigners, even by priests, carried a penalty of death. Not a fine, death. This was not mysticism. Egypt's agricultural system ran on the Nile flood cycle. Each year the waters receded and left behind silt. What made that silt productive was not the sediment. It was what lived inside it. Egyptian farmers understood that the creatures working through that soil were the reason their fields could feed an empire. Cleopatra's decree was not superstition. It was infrastructure policy. The formal scientific account came much later. Charles Darwin spent the final decades of his life studying earthworms at his home in Down House, Kent. Field measurements, controlled experiments with stone slabs monitored for years at a time. In 1881, the year before he died, he published the formation of vegetable mold through the action of worms. The conclusion was specific. A single acre of healthy English farmland held earthworms that collectively moved and processed 10 tons of soil per year. Darwin did not frame this as a curiosity. He framed it as the foundation of agriculture itself. The topsoil that feeds every crop on Earth is largely the product of earthworm activity over centuries. That knowledge did not disappear. It was simply no longer useful to anyone trying to sell something. The science that put hard numbers on what Darwin and Cleopatra already knew came from a 2014 meta-analysis published in the journal Scientific Reports. Researchers Van Groningen and colleagues analyzed 58 separate studies across multiple crop types and soil conditions. The finding was quantified. Fields with earthworm populations produced 25% higher crop yields and 23% more above-ground biomass than equivalent fields without them. A follow-up calculation extended those numbers globally. Earthworms contribute an estimated 6.5% of total global grain production, roughly 140 million tons per year. Earthworms do not feed plants directly. They restructure the soil, creating channels for air and water, breaking down organic matter into forms that microbes convert into plant-available nutrients, producing castings that experienced gardeners consistently describe as several times richer in key nutrients than the soil around them. Without them, soil compacts. Water runs off instead of soaking in. Nutrients sit locked in forms plant roots cannot reach. The crop grows in chemistry instead of biology. But here is where the story takes its unexpected turn. The cloudy water left after rinsing uncooked rice, the water most households pour down the drain, changes after 2 to 3 days of fermentation at room temperature. A 2021 peer-reviewed study in the journal Sustainability documented the shift. Nitrogen fixation up 47 to 84%, potassium solubilization up 73 to 84%, and elevated production of a natural root growth hormone that accelerates how quickly plants establish in the soil. The study did not test earthworm counts directly. What it documented was a measurable increase in the microbial populations that earthworms feed on, process, and depend on. Gardeners who apply fermented rice water regularly report visibly higher worm activity in treated zones within weeks. The mechanism the study documented is exactly why. So why has none of this appeared in mainstream gardening advice in the last 50 years? Because the answer does not come in a bag. The agrochemical model that replaced traditional soil management is not built around earthworms. It is built around inputs, fertilizer applied from outside the soil, herbicides applied from outside the soil. Every intervention is a product. Every product requires a purchase. Every season the gardener returns to the store. Earthworms require no purchase. They reproduce on their own. They process the organic material already present. They need nothing that cannot be found in a kitchen or a garden. And that is precisely the problem. Conventional tilling reduces earthworm populations by approximately 70% within 5 years. After 25 years of standard tillage, studies document populations at 11 to 16% of their original levels. The practice was not designed to eliminate earthworms. The damage was a side effect that nobody had an incentive to study, report, or correct. Glyphosate-based herbicides, the most widely used agricultural chemicals in the world, cut earthworm reproduction by 56% within 3 months of application. Not population, reproduction. The pipeline itself is severed. A field treated with standard herbicides does not just have fewer earthworms today, it is producing fewer for next season, and the season after that. The home gardener was never the target, but the same products, the same advice, the same bag and bottle system scaled down from industrial farming and landed in the backyard. The damage followed with it. The knowledge that reverses this generates no revenue for anyone. There is no patent on fermented rice water. There is no margin on rice bran buried in a garden bed. There is no business model for what a single grain crop has been quietly doing to soil for centuries. Not because anyone decided to hide it, because no one had a reason to fund the study, package the result, or put it on a shelf. All 4 techniques come from one plant: rice, from the rinse water, from the bran, from the hull, and from what is left in the pot after cooking. Used in traditional Asian farming for centuries, and codified into a formal system by Cho Han-kyu through Korean natural farming in the 1960s, built on older fermentation traditions. The first is fermented rice water. Rinse uncooked rice, reserve the cloudy water, leave it covered at room temperature for 2 to 3 days. A faint sour smell means the fermentation is active. Dilute with an equal amount of fresh water and apply to the soil at the base of plants, not on the leaves, not on seedlings. Apply weekly. The second is rice bran burial. Raw rice bran, the outer layer removed during milling, available at Asian grocery stores and feed suppliers, is high in phosphorus, potassium, and organic compounds that fuel microbial populations. Bury a handful 6 to 8 inches below the soil surface. Earthworms feed at depth. Repeat every 4 to 6 weeks. The third is rice hull mulch. Uncoated rice hulls laid 2 to 3 inches deep retain moisture, regulate temperature, and break down slowly into organic matter earthworms migrate toward. The fourth is cooked rice. Plain, unseasoned, no oil. Scatter 2 to 3 tablespoons per square foot across the bed. Press lightly into the surface and cover with mulch. Within 48 hours, the starch begins breaking down. Bacteria arrive first. Earthworms follow the bloom. One rule makes all 4 work: never till. A single pass of a garden fork destroys the tunnel networks earthworms build over years. The surface may look worked. Underneath, the infrastructure is gone. Pull back a corner of rice hull mulch left down for 2 weeks. What is underneath tells you everything about where the soil currently stands. This is not a new technique. It is an old one that never needed improving. The knowledge was in the rice pot the whole time. Conventional tilling has been standard practice for half a century. Glyphosate use has accelerated every decade since its introduction. The 2014 meta-analysis quantifying the 25% yield contribution was published in a peer-reviewed journal. It was not widely reported. It did not change standard recommendations.